You all in my lane, you ain't overlooked, so get out the way. I gave you the book, I gave you the game. The boy gotta cook, the boy got a flame, Serving in the kitchen like you Nino. Plenty bitchin', whipping different flavors like a bistro. Kick it, dip it, flip it, keep it hunting like a seed note. Switch and keep it pimpin' every single place that he go. I got it. Lathan got the flame, Lathan got the flame. Boy, you know the name, get up out the way. Lathan got the flame, Lathan got the flame. Stay up out the kitchen if you ain't the one that's whipping, huh? Hey, yo, Lathan, man, cook them boys up something real quick, man.
What's going on, YouTube, and welcome back to my channel. Now today we got our amazing beef and broccoli. So the first thing we want to do is get our rice ready. Now this is jasmine rice, and it is 2 cups of jasmine rice to 3 cups of water. So that's 2 cups of jasmine rice to 3 cups of water. Make sure you run that jasmine rice under some cold water to rinse all that starch and that dirt off of it before you begin to cook it. So make sure you do that. I didn't show you guys that, but just make sure you do that. Once you get that rice and that water in that pot, go ahead and throw some salt in there, and then we're gonna bring this up to a boil and then simmer it for 7 minutes and let it sit for about 3 minutes, and then we're gonna fluff it with a fork. But do not overcook this rice. All right, second step, we're gonna get our flank steak together. Now on my flank steak, you can see I left it in the freezer too long, but you wanna pop it in the freezer. It's easier to deal with. And then you're gonna cut it in half, and then cut with the grain in half again because you want thin pieces. And then you're gonna cut against the grain. Make sure you cut against the grain for the pieces of meat that you're going to eat. We cut with the grain just to make the piece of meat smaller so we can work with, but make sure you cut the pieces that you're going to saute against the grain. It just makes for a tender piece of meat, and it'll break up the fibers in the meat so you won't be chewing for a long time. This right here is just going to melt in your mouth. And make sure you pop it in the freezer so you get it extremely thin like I did. Once we get that steak together, we're going to go ahead and chop up an onion. Make sure you finely chop that onion, and we're just julienne in the onion, and we're going to actually pop this onion directly into that beef, and it's going to go and marinate with the beef. Now, the marinade we're going to create, it's not going to be a marinade that you have to let go overnight. It's going to be a quick marinade, so we're marinating this for maybe like 30 minutes to an hour. It's pretty much up to you. But once we got all the meat and the onions in the bag or in a bowl, we're going to add on some rice wine vinegar. I added about 2 teaspoons of rice wine vinegar, and with the soy sauce I added about 2 tablespoons. So 2 teaspoons of the rice wine vinegar and 2 tablespoons of the soy sauce, and that's low sodium soy. Then we're going to add in some mirin. I added about a teaspoon of mirin. You don't have to add this, but it just added a little sweetness. And then we added in some sesame oil. We do not cook with this oil, not often, but we want that good sesame flavor, and that's why we added a teaspoon of sesame oil. And then to help us thicken that sauce up at the end, we're going to add some cornstarch, and that's going to be our little thickener. And this is the Chinese secret right here to make this meat extra tender in a quick period of time. We're going to add some baking soda in there. And we're going to add a little under a teaspoon of baking soda. So we had a little under a teaspoon of cornstarch and a little under a teaspoon of baking soda. And I didn't have any real garlic, so I used some granulated garlic. Don't beat me up for that, but you know, I forgot to go to the grocery store. So this is a weekday meal, just something easy. So we got granulated garlic, so we're going to let that roll. So we're going to get our meat marinated. We're going to get everything massaged. And notice I didn't go too heavy on the seasonings or the marinade for the meat, because we're going to make a sauce to go with this beef and broccoli. And the sauce, the starter sauce, is going to be this oyster sauce. And this oyster sauce is going to give you some savory, some sweet notes. It's everything you want. So we went in a little under 1/4 of a cup with this oyster sauce. And then we're going to cut this oyster sauce with a little soy, just to give it a little bit more savory note, so it's not too sweet, because we added mirin as well to the marinade. And then we're going to cut it with the rice wine vinegar, just give us some acidic notes. And so with the rice wine vinegar, I added about 2 tablespoons of rice wine vinegar, and for the soy I added about 1 tablespoon. And then we're going to get that sauce all mixed up. You can add a slurry in there, but I tend to like to add my slurries at the end. Then we got some broccoli we're going to blanch off and then cool, and we're gonna shock it cool. So going back to the sauce, you can add your slurry in the sauce, but I tend to like to add mine later, because if you add it too early, it'll get thick or too thick sometimes where you can't manage it. So I like to add it in later, where I can pretty much dictate how much I want to add and how thick I want my sauce. But for beef and broccoli, I like my beef and broccoli extra loose because I like to use the sauce for my rice. So we're gonna get all our meat and onions into that pan. That pan is extra hot, so you don't have to worry about crowding that pan. I know I usually tell you about overcrowding the pan, but this pan is screaming hot because we want to sear this meat quick. So once we get that meat in there, we're gonna let it sit for like a minute, 2 minutes, and then we're gonna get the sauteing it, and you see those good caramelization on that meat. So we're just gonna continue to cook this meat until it is just brown. We're not gonna go like extra well done because we're gonna let it cook with the sauce and the broccoli as well. So once you see all the red almost gone, we're gonna go ahead and add our broccoli to this mix. And you can throw some salt in there if you want, but we got tons of soy and tons of oyster sauce, so you really don't need salt. So that's why you didn't see me add any. But once we get the meat to this point, we're gonna go ahead and add our broccoli to the mix. Make sure we get all that broccoli in the mix. Now we want to heat this broccoli back through, because remember, we blanched the broccoli and then we shocked the cool with ice cold water. So we want to make sure we hit this broccoli back through and just cook it just until it's at the point where you like it. So once we get to that point, we're gonna go ahead and add our sauce to it. And like I said, you could have added your slurry in the sauce and it would have been getting as thick and ASAP, but you see I added my slurry late, and like I told you, I get to pretty much dictate how I want it. But once we get to that point, it's ready. We're gonna go ahead and go on with our rice, our jasmine rice. And I'm just getting some height. That's why you see me go in with the ice cream scoop, just to build it up, because we want to build this presentation up with height. Then from there, we're gonna go on with our good beef and broccoli. And remember, I said we're gonna use that sauce as well. So just wait on that. But we're gonna pile it up, and you can put how much on here you want, how less you want. I know I put a lot in here, but it's just for presentation purposes. And then we're gonna go on with that sauce. And like I said, you see my sauce is a tad bit thin. If you like yours a tad bit thicker, you can add more slurry to it. But there you have it, man, the most amazing beef and broccoli. Now for the sesame seeds, make sure you toast those off, just to bring those oils out and that goodness out of those sesame seeds. But once you get those toasted off, pop them on top. And you can throw some scallions on there as well, but I really don't like scallions like that. And just for a garnish that I'm gonna throw away, I really didn't feel the need to have to put them on there. But you can add some scallions as well, make it very pretty, pop visually. But man, this is like the most incredible beef and broccoli. You'll think we went to Takeout 98 or Takeout number 2 for this beef and broccoli, but you made it in the comfort of your home on a weekday. This meal altogether took me about 37 minutes to make. So you got 30 minutes to blow. So there you have it, man. The most amazing beef and broccoli. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Beef and broccoli from the Bistro. I'm out.